everybody. Welcome back to my YouTube channel, LGW3 Orchids and Exotics. Today, I am finally going to make this video on my basement greenhouse. It's only been over a year. Finished this last year with my son back in July of 2021. So let's go ahead and check it out. Okay. So this is my basement greenhouse. I wanted to make this video for a few different reasons. Those of you who've been following my channel now, you recall I had a lot of houseplants, specifically around 300 orchids that I was growing indoors when I lived in the apartment, and it was a lot. You know, taking care of that amount of plants, especially if you have a love for the hobby, it becomes a lot. And yeah, I just figured it'd be easier to build a greenhouse here and keep the plants in high humidity pretty much year round, and put all the automation, everything built into, you know, one big greenhouse. So let's go ahead and check it out. So first thing to note here is that I tried to keep this organized as best I could. You can see here I have pretty much all of my orchid supplies, different fertilizers that I use, all kinds of material that I use for you know, potting up the orchids, sphagnum moss there, and bins and bins and bins of nothing but pots and clay pots and plastic net pots, hangers, you name it. So it's a lot. So next thing I wanted to discuss was the automation factor. I have pretty much about 35 Wi-Fi outlets that control everything from fans to misters to all kinds of automated things, humidifiers. So this is the first setup I have. This is a Moisten Land misting system here. This thing is great. You know, I tried the ZoomEd reptile mister specifically for like lizard tanks and things like that. And this thing was a 10-liter huge tank, and it had a very powerful pump, but it didn't seem to last. When I had hooked one up in this greenhouse, it lasted maybe a couple weeks and it died. So I decided to look around on Amazon. This was a great alternative, and this thing is a powerhouse. You wouldn't think that it would work so well, but it really does. And you could pretty much utilize any sort of tank that you want. I have this 3-gallon water jug, put a little bit of Fizan in there, so when it mists inside the greenhouse, we don't get any bacteria or fungus in the water. And I also keep plenty of fans running. This reduces the chance of any negative effects on the plants. So this is what it looks like when you first go into the greenhouse. So we're going to go ahead and check it out. Now, I mentioned to you the different automations I have. I have this humidifier down here. I keep this set at about 70%. So right now the humidity is above 70, so it's not on. I have lots of fans. You can see up there, this fan is running. I've got all the lights. Recently put up this super bright light up here. This thing is pretty much a commercial grade that's dimmable for growing. I think people use it for growing weed and things like that in warehouses, probably other vegetables and things like that that they grow in commercial greenhouses. So it is super powerful. Probably could have put just 4 of these in here and kept everything nice and happy, but I decided to go with multiple lights, pretty much taking a lot of the equipment that I had in my old setup. So what do we have here? I have this 32-gallon bin. I use this for my fertilizer. I actually mix it up. I have just a regular pond pump in the bottom. Typical setup here with the garden hose. Water comes out, flipped on with the switch there. And I also keep it heated and maintain about a 76 degree Fahrenheit temperature with some other sensors on there. You can see it reads out the temperature upstairs on a universal temperature device that I have. So this automation allows me to maintain this basement greenhouse pretty much with great ease. I mean, it doesn't, the exception of filling things up and keeping things tidy and watering maybe for 30 minutes a day or so, it's really not that much work once it's set up. So I'll just take a quick look around here. Plants seem very happy. You can see all the nice lush green growth. Now, one thing to note, these lights, I know a lot of people don't like these lights. They sort of play tricks with your eyes. I'm not a huge fan either. I've gotten away from these. I do, however, still have 3 in here. I had one above this terrarium here, but it burned out, and I actually replaced it with these other regular white lights. You know, there's been a lot of research over the years, and infrared is very important and near that spectrum as well for plants, for chlorophyll and things like that. But at the end of the day, it's better to have just an all-around white light that encompasses the full spectrum. There are other things that happen scientifically and past some of the knowledge that I have that basically excites other photons. And so having that full spectrum, even though we know plants don't use really any in the green, hence the reason we can see the green color, it still plays an important role in basically multiplying the photon energy overall and making sure that the plants get a nice spectrum that matches the type of chlorophyll. So we'll go ahead, we'll take a quick look around here. Nice little orchid there in bloom. I'll pull it down so you can actually see the color a little better. So this guy here is a Ornithocephalus inflexus. You can see that. Look at all those little flowers. Beautiful, tiny little specimen. I've had this for a couple years now. Gets white and green flowers. Kind of smells like cilantro. Not that appealing, but cool looking nonetheless. I've got some other here. This is a Cattleya Boringia cross. This one's actually going out now. You can see here some other succulent plants back there. This was a little lifesaver cactus that I recently got. And you can see now that this thing's putting out some new growth. Everything's doing really well. Nice little yellow habanera over here. Got this courtesy of Wade's Orchids out in PA. Nice little phragmipedium there. Again, some other succulents I grow here. It's not all orchids. I do have some other succulents that I've been growing out here. These are epiphyllum types, and they're doing really well. So everything's super happy. Now, temperature, humidity-wise, I would say this stays around during the day, probably anywhere from 80 to 82 or so. I do keep a window open over here, cracked at the top, and I do that for the sole reason of making sure that I keep some good aeration in here. It can get pretty warm at times, especially during the summer months. Now we're getting into fall, so I hope that the cool air will kind of come down through the basement window there and sink, kind of create a mini climate over here for some of the, some cooler growers or plants that appreciate some more cooler to intermediate temperatures. And take a look at this one. This is Dendrobium hibiki. Look at that. Beautiful, beautiful coloring. So everything is super happy. No complaints. Again, growing in a greenhouse type environment where it's a bit more sealed and higher humidity, it is definitely a bit different than growing inside. Humidity is not as much of a challenge to keep up, but you still have to make sure you pay attention to certain mini climates within the greenhouse here. You can see this. This is my variegated vanilla. It's doing excellent. Here's another one. This thing's going to be a beast. Just keeps climbing all over. loves the higher humidity in here. And I've been wrapping it around this pole, but I don't know, I may have to figure out some alternative to that. Figure out, maybe I'll put it on a little mini trellis. Here's another cool one. This is an Arangus punctata. So you can see here, it's got some nice long, I guess the pinnacles hang down, where once this flower opens, it would be, I guess, where a moth or some kind of pollinator uses a long tongue, sticks it down in there for the pollen, obviously pollinates the plant. Then this has done really well. Again, this came from Wade's Orchids. I've had that for a couple years. Here's my miniature terrarium setup I have here. This has some cool miniatures in here. Some of these did well, some of these are not. You can see here, this had some dieback. I think what it was is overall the temperature in here goes up to about 80, 82. And some of these are just, they really prefer to be grown on the cooler side. Another thing, which I'm going to do a separate video on, is I was sent a product to test for a company. It's basically a temperature and humidity controller, and you hook it in line with a humidifier, which I do have down here, terrarium humidifier. This pumps up and will actually go ahead and fog this up and actually demonstrate here. So if you look in there, you can see how the fog comes down. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and actually set the humidifier up on that controller. And in the winter time, there's actually a heating pad under here that will control the heating mechanism if needed. Winter low temperatures in this greenhouse go down to about 59, 60. I do keep a heater in here, but it's never really been an issue to maintain a temperature of at least 60, 62. And the plants, of course, during a winter rest, you know, they don't mind. And even the ones that are continuing to grow, they just grow a little slower. Here's another one, and it's about to bloom soon. So, yeah, so this is pretty much it. Like I said, I plan to do more videos about some of the setup I have here. I'll go into more details. I have been waiting to do this for a while. It's a pretty cool setup overall, I think. Always looking to make improvements anywhere I can. So tons and tons of plants in here. You can see I have lots of plants hanging from the roof. So, but yeah, leave some comments. Any thoughts, ideas you have, any questions, anything like that, please feel free to ask. I appreciate everybody watching, and like I said, stay tuned because I will definitely be posting more videos on some different setups in here, possibly products that I'll test, things like that. So, all right, everybody, have a great day, and thank you for watching.